Going on, guys? Tristan Larson here. Let's talk about how to scale your agency, right? This is something that 99.9% of business owners and just people in general who have agencies struggle with. They struggle with, how do I scale my business? A lot of people don't really even wrap their mind around the concept of scaling. They know that scaling means making more money, but how do you actually do that, right? How do you actually scale? Now, the first thing that you need to know is that there's a couple different types of businesses, right? There's a level 1 business, which is a startup. There's a couple different phases of a level 2 business. And then there's a level 3 business. A level 3 business is a business that continues to grow without the owner or the CEO being involved in the company, more like the founder, without the founder being involved in the company. Right? That's a business that continues to grow. And if you're in business, that's what your goal should be. Your goal should be to get to a level 3 business, figure out your exit plan, and know whether you want to either sell the company, whether you want to go ahead and use it for passive income, or if you want to continue to work in the company. But the only difference is, if you do continue to work in the company, it's optional, right? You want it to be optional to whether or not you want to work in the company. And that's what a level 3 business is, and that's what it looks like when you scale. Like all the big companies, they're all level 3 businesses. The founder does not need to be in the company for the company to continue to grow. So how do you go ahead and get to a place where you can do that, where you can just remove yourself from the business, remove yourself from your agency? And it comes down to a couple different things, right? So it comes down to processes, controls, and team, right? Those are the main things that you need to know, as well as procedures, and let's talk about some of those things, right? So it comes down to systems, controls, and things like that. Now, what is a system, right? So a system is basically a guideline for your team to follow. It's the best practice that's been documented, right? The documented best practices for your team to follow in order to go ahead and know what to do in different scenarios. So for example, what I've pulled up right here is I have my hiring process, right? So this is a documented practice. If I hire a manager, right, which I have a manager on my team, my manager can just go ahead and follow this process when hiring people, right? And it gives him or her a detailed process in knowing how to hire someone, right? It gives them what questions to ask, what steps to follow, the purpose of each step, right? How to dictate whether or not the person has a good or bad response to each step, right? So how you respond to someone, it documents exactly how you should behave. So now I don't have to hire because I created this process, and this is the best process for someone to use when hiring someone. So now when hiring someone for sales, so now I don't have to do that anymore. I can just have my team member do that because I created this system, right? So this is an example of a system, right? And then the other thing is, controls, right? So you're asking yourself, what is a control? So a control is basically something that it's similar to a system, but the difference between a system and a control is a control has very little room for human error, right? So this right here is a control. All they have to do is send this form to our clients when we're onboarding them. The clients fill it out and send it back to us, and then boom, right? So this is something that's very little room for human error. And let me guys give you the exact definition of a control. So controls aren't about giving you, the business owner, control. They're about giving the business control, right? The best controls make the default behavior the best behavior. Let me say that again. The best controls make the default behavior, or make the best behavior the default behavior. So how can you make the best behavior in your business the default behavior, right? What is it that you know as an agency owner that you can go ahead and create, right? That you can go ahead and put into some type of system that makes the room for error very low. So this, for example, there's no room for error. All they do is send this form to a prospect, the prospect fills it out, and then we have all the information we need to get started onboarding them, right? There's literally no room for error because this form is already created. All they have to do is send it. So the default behavior, or the best behavior, has become the default behavior, right? Does that make sense? So now there's some examples, some other systems. Now this is mymonday.com account that I use for my course, Social Closing You, that I am in the process of dropping to the public. And you can see right here what I have is I have different tasks that are laid out, right? I have different tasks that different team members need to do, right? So I have tasks for me, and then I have tasks for my different team members who are working on this project, right? So install the Facebook Pixel. And basically what we can say is we can say, okay, what is the deadline? So we can set deadlines for when the tasks need to be done, right? And then we can also go ahead and say where we are in the process of this, right? So are we working on it? Are we done? And if it's completely blank, it just means that something else needs to get done in order for us to even work on it, right? If that makes sense. At least that's the way that I do it. And then there's a date right here for when you should get started on this project. So what you can do, right? So right now, since this is my course, I obviously haven't hired someone to go ahead and take this over and be a manager of the project. So I am personally going ahead and assigning these tasks because I'm looking at everything. But if you hire someone on your team who's an expert and you put them in place and have them be the manager of your team, the manager can go ahead and use this and go ahead and assign tasks to the different team members. So now the manager has control, and you can completely remove yourself from the situation because the manager can just assign these tasks to your team, right? So that makes it really, really simple to go ahead and delegate things, right? Makes it super easy to do that. And you can use this in your agency as well, right? So obviously, I use this in my agency, but I wanted to show you the one that's the most fresh. And what you can do is create different processes for when you get started working with a client. So when you first onboard a client, what are the best practices, right? So what should you be doing, right? What questions should you be asking? Once you manage their Facebook page, should you change the header? Should you go ahead and focus on these type of ads for the first week, focus on these type of ads the second week, the third type of ad the third week, etc., right? So that's something that you kind of need to figure out, is you need to figure out what the best practices are, and then you can delegate the best practices. So that's where a lot of agency owners really struggle, is they struggle at knowing what the best practice is. And if they don't know what the best practice is, then how can they systemize it? And that's really why, investing in mentors and stuff like that becomes really important, because once you know what the best practices are, because you learn the best practices from the mentor, you can then delegate the best practices from the book, from the course, from the person you pay for consulting, from the person who, taught you in a workshop. Once you learn from people who are already where you want to be, you now have the best practices that you can go ahead and give to your team, and then you can scale your business really quickly, right? So that's where doing that becomes really important. And let me show you guys one more strategy that I use to delegate. I talk about this a lot more in SCU, and I don't want to make this video like an hour long, because this video could literally be like 4 hours long. But this is another software that I use that's coming up here, loading super slowly. It's called Lucid Charts, and basically what it allows me to do is that team can follow. So basically what's being pulled up right now is my process for getting results for clients, right? I have a very specific process I follow for getting clients results, right? And this is an example of one of my processes, right? So on the right, you see the actual type of ads I run, and on the left is the step, right? So if I hand this off to the person who manages my social media accounts for my clients, all they have to do is look on the right here and know exactly what type of ads to run for the client. So it's super powerful and makes it really easy to delegate tasks because all they know is to go ahead and column and know exactly how to get clients. They know what type of ads to run for the first week. And here's some examples, some other things I do here. Let me show you guys one more. I don't want to make this video super long. I talk a lot more about this in my program, and people who knows me know I'm very systems oriented. So I talk a lot about systems. I think systems are super neglected. I recently took a personality test, and my personality used to be an ENTR. Now my personality type is the architect. I think it's an INT something, not maybe INTP. I don't know. I forget. It's INT something. I forget what the last letter is. But basically, I'm an architect. So my brain, I develop systems. That's what I'm good at. I'm good at developing systems. That's what my personality type is in line with, right? So right here, here's an example of systemizing a sales team. So literally, what I have here is I have, depending upon what someone says, I have the exact action you need to take, right? So if someone is requesting more information, you do this. If someone says, call me or would love to hear more about it, you do this. If someone says, email me or my assistant, you do this. You send this email. You send the more information email. After that, if they show interest, then we set up a time to have a launch call. Right? So literally, this is so systemized to the point where if I hand this to a salesperson, they know the exact step to follow after going ahead and taking that action. They know exactly what to do because it's all mapped out, right? It's like a plan, right? And then boom, if they get to the star, it's also gamified, right? So if they follow this process and they get here, then boom, right? They get to the star. And each path is a different path. The dark orange path is the path of least resistance. The green is like the green, and then this path right here, this is a little bit warmer. This is like the path of most resistance. And this is the path of no resistance because this just leads to nowhere. So anyway, guys, that's basically real quickly how you develop systems. I hope this video was valuable. No one talks about this. If you want to see more videos like this, let me know. And go ahead and comment and subscribe. And like this video if you liked it. And I'll see you sometime soon.